Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Adrian Farrugia from the Drugs, Gender and Sexuality Research Team at the Australian Research Centre in Sex, Health and Society at Trobe University. And today I'm going to be presenting a paper as part of a research team for World Hepatitis Day 2021. The paper today is entitled Waiting to Live Free of Hepatitis C, Personal Experiences of Cure in the Elimination Era. Before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture, and pay my respect to their elders past and present. Before I proceed with the paper, I'd also like to acknowledge the 50 people who generously gave time to take part in the research so far. That the project is funded by an Australian Research Council Discovery Project grant and is working under the broader investigator team, which is Professor Suzanne Fraser, Professor David Moore from La Trobe University, Professor Carla Treloar from University of New South Wales, Dr. Michael Edwards from University of New South Wales, and Ms. Elizabeth Burglas from the Department of Health and Human Services. I should also mention the broader research team includes Dr. Renee Formiati, and that the project is operating under the guidance of an expert advisory panel from a range of, representing a range of stakeholders, including peer and other professional bodies. So my presentation today stems from a broader project, as I said, funded by the Australian Research Council to investigate understandings and experiences of hepatitis C treatment in this current era focused on elimination. So the research responds to a range of issues, most centrally being the complex dynamics shaping treatment uptake in Australia. So with the advent of direct-acting antiviral treatments, Australia signed up to the World Health Organization's goal of eliminating Hep C by 2030. Upon full subsidisation of direct-acting antiviral treatments, Australia did see a dramatic increase in uptake of Hep C treatment. However, this uptake has since plateaued and declined, with concerns that Australia's 2030 elimination goals are now in jeopardy. While much research has emphasised the improved experiences of direct-acting antiviral treatments when compared with previous interferon treatments, our project seeks to investigate how individuals understand the new treatments, experience them, and any health issues they continue to face post-treatment. So the aims of this research project then are to explore knowledge of the new Hep C treatments in Australia among people diagnosed with Hep C, explore their decisions about and experiences of new hepatitis C treatments, identify impediments to treatment uptake, including stigma, and explore any health issues identified post-treatment, including access to healthcare. And finally, and this is something I'll touch on towards the end of the presentation, where we'll use the new knowledge generated from the research to develop a public website that will inform treatment candidates, health professionals, and others about treatments for Hep C. So this year's World Hepatitis Day theme is Hep Can't Wait. And we can see I've quoted the website here on the slide. The theme seeks to increase the sense of urgency around hepatitis C and treatment by pointing to a range of issues that cannot wait for people affected by Hep C. So importantly, the theme also makes the point of emphasising the significance of Hep C despite the current COVID-19 pandemic. And this is an important issue given that concerns in Australia and elsewhere that COVID-19 would draw attention away from the elimination efforts. The World Hepatitis Day 2021 theme also emphasises issues in delay in treatment and other relevant responses to the virus. So whether and in what ways hepatitis C is positioned as an urgent issue requiring urgent attention is intimately shaped by the social and material context in which it takes shape. So similarly, and whether and in what ways treatment is urgently distributed or made available within communities and accessed or delayed by individuals is shaped by these same dynamics. So in order to offer a close account of how such dynamics play out in individual lives and experiences of treatment, today I'm going to analyse 3 specific cases of treatment and cure, focusing on how a range of forces together constituted treatment urgency, at times delay, and ultimately whether and in what ways individuals are made to wait or not wait to live meaningfully free from hepatitis C. Before I present our research specifically, it's important to discuss some of the existing research in this area. So a large body of qualitative research on hepatitis C treatment offers insights into experiences and understandings of cure and what is often termed clearance. So while improved physical health, such as an increase in energy levels, is significant, experiences of cure are also imbued with deeper meanings. In this sense, this research tells us that hepatitis C cure is not solely defined by a biomedical definition of cure, but is invested with meanings beyond the virus and its effects. So much research argues, for example, that cure offers a symbolic break from a past life and stigmatized subjectivity linked to a history of injecting drug consumption. These dynamics, in which cure is more than just a biomedical experience, shapes motivations for and experiences of treatment in important ways. In Australia, for example, Madden and colleagues' recent work suggests that individuals accessing treatment often hope for outcomes beyond cure, such as the development of new social connections and strategies to manage health and well-being. Overall, this area of research emphasises that Hep C treatment and cure are valued not only in relation to biomedical clearance of the virus, but in their connection to understandings of health, normality, citizenship, and what it means to live a good life. Research on treatment access also identifies a series of social issues shaping and often impeding uptake of direct-acting antiviral treatment. Gaps in continuity of care, poor vein health, and the challenge of finding supportive and non-judgmental care have been identified as key issues limiting treatment access. While direct-acting antiviral treatments have vastly fewer side effects than interferon-based treatments, concerns about side effects also continue to shape treatment access and experiences. So in this respect and others, ensuring efforts to increase uptake fully engage with the meanings given to treatment as they circulate within affected communities is key. When analysing these impediments, it is important to point out that many, such as the searches for non-judgmental treatment, are consistent with the previous era of treatment. Importantly, together this body of research emphasises that treatment uptake must be understood as shaped by as a sort of complex social milieu in which consumers juggle multiple pressing health and other concerns, such that individual and social level impediments need to be approached as entangled rather than separate. So an analysis that's able to engage with the way that a range of social and material forces are entangled and act together within experiences of treatment uptake and cure, and looks at cure not so much purely as a biomedical phenomenon, but as a social and material event, requires a theoretical orientation that effectively foregrounds these multiple issues and forces that shape the virus treatments and its outcomes. And so to this end, this project has been mobilising conceptual resources drawn from Suzanne Fraser and Kate Sears' book entitled Making Disease, Making Citizens, The Politics of Hepatitis C. And primarily, and this is what I'll be working with today, their concept of disease as a gathering. So in this book, they introduce a range of concepts drawn from science and technology studies and feminist science studies in order to, in their words, formulate an approach to disease able to acknowledge the ways in which social and political forces, namely poverty, disadvantage, and stigma, directly shape the disease of hepatitis C. So in line with this approach, they argue that diseases such as Hep C are best approached not as self-evident objects waiting to be discovered, measured, and eventually eliminated through cure, but as they say, emergent phenomena, constantly being made and remade by social forces. For them, diseases do not merely impact on society and culture, but are constituted through them. So this STS-inspired approach understands diseases as co-emergent with things like stigmatization and marginalization of populations, and therefore is fundamentally driven by complex social and institutional actions beyond or interaction with individual actions. So working with prominent philosopher of science, Bruno Latour, they argue that in order to best understand or analyse this co-emergence of the range of issues and shaping social dynamics and individual experiences of hepatitis C, it is best to approach it as what they say, in their words, a thing in the Heideggerian sense. That is, a gathering that exceeds any notion of simple fact or object. Things in this sense are as much made or gathered in culture and action as they are given prior to culture and action. Importantly, when hepatitis C is understood as made or gathered in culture and action, rather than as a stable entity awaiting discovery and cure, It must be approached as made in many moments and in many ways. And as they say, it is the responsibility and therefore the fault of many individual groups and forces, not just those who have it. This is a really important point. So, but what does an account of disease as a gathering offer an analysis of cure specifically? So working with this approach, I analyse cure not simply as a biomedical phenomenon today, but as a social and material event, made possible through the gathering of various social and material forces. And in this sense, it is these forces, which I'll explore in this presentation, that afford cure. Overall, approaching cure as a gathering denaturalises it, thereby challenging the view that it is a simple biomedical state bestowed purely by science and medicine alone. As this presentation will demonstrate, cure is not only achieved through a sustained virological response, but through broader social and material forces and challenges. For the purposes of this analysis, approaching cure as a gathering has three primary implications. First, it draws attention to the social and material relations beyond medicine that work together to generate cure. It offers a relational and shared understanding of responsibility when treatment works, and importantly, when it does not. And it affords understanding that even when it is achieved, cure remains an emergent and always unstable social and material phenomenon, defined by more than just a sustained virological response. As mentioned in the introduction, the analysis I'm presenting today stems from a broader qualitative project on experiences of hepatitis C treatment in Australia. For this research, we have gathered the accounts of 50 individuals affected by hepatitis C so far. As I'm only focusing on 3 participants today and recruitment isn't quite complete, I won't go into the demographics of our dataset in depth. Suffice to say that our participants have a broad range of relationships to Hep C, including those who inject drugs but are unaware of their status, those who have it but have never had treatment, those who have experiences of the new or the old treatments only, as well as those who have experiences of both treatments or who have acquired hepatitis C again after an experience of cure. So moving on to the 3 individual experiences. So read together, these cases illustrate the ways in which that while elimination is possible, it is contingent on the broader social and material forces that gather alongside biomedical intervention. So crucially for World Hepatitis Day this year, unless these same forces are gathered in the right way, elimination and cure will continue to wait. Our first case study is Amelia's account of using direct-acting antiviral treatments to cure her hepatitis C in 2018. And this was an event she described as really satisfying and offering a feeling of accomplishment. Amelia is 41 years old and has 4 children. They live in Melbourne, Victoria. She acquired hepatitis C through injecting drugs when she was younger, but was not injecting at the time of her interview in 2020. When she was diagnosed in 2016, her initial question was, am I going to die? Being pregnant with her 4th child at the time, she decided to postpone treatment until after she had given birth. Amelia started treatment in 2018, and as she explained in her interview, initially she struggled to take her medication regularly as she was experiencing homelessness and intimate partner violence while also caring for her young child. So in her words, she says, I'd gone through some domestic violence stuff. My partner and I had sort of broke up and I'd left the home. I was renting and then, I ended up sort of homeless, living on a stranger's couch, a friend of a friend. I was living there for a little bit and then moving from there and having Department of Health and Human Services involved and whatnot. So it's been a craziest couple of years. Amelia went on to describe how these difficult circumstances have impacted on her treatment schedule. She says, I guess taking my Hep C treatment was the last on my list to do, which probably harmed my health. It's a 12-week medication and 3/4 of it was taken in dribs and drabs pretty much. So like out of 7 days of the week, I was lucky if I took it 4 times a week. As this account emphasises, even in a context of highly affordable and tolerable or oral medications, enduring barriers to treatment completion can continue to limit the ability to use medication and achieve cure. Amelia went into further detail about how insecure housing arrangements and the hepatitis C related stigma meant she took her medication sporadically. She says, yeah, it was difficult to manage treatment, and especially like you're not really wanting certain people to know because they will judge you. Like you were kind of hiding your medication and then you're not taking it anymore. And then you're taking it whenever. So it was extremely hard. And then, yeah, you kind of stop altogether. So we can see here that in Amelia's case, the right social and material circumstances have not yet gathered in such a way as to generate the cure afforded by her treatment. Not only was it difficult to manage taking the medications amidst pressing and competing personal concerns and responsibilities, she felt pressured to hide her medication for fear it would identify her as unwell or presumably someone who had or did inject drugs. So for her then, her treatment must wait until she was able to manage a range of other issues. These forces, homelessness, childcare, intimate partner violence, stigma, they gather to render the highly efficacious new treatment weak and inoperative up until this point. Her cure is delayed. However, Amelia's circumstances changed dramatically over time, partly because she was able to find stable accommodation, and partly due to a friend's suggestion to change the way she stored and accessed her treatment. So she explains, my best friend was trying to help me. So I moved into a new place, a house that I'm in now, so my own place. And she was trying to help me get sorted in some of my routine. So she said, Amelia, why don't you take your medication to the chemist? Go to the chemist every day to get your methadone dose. So while they're dosing you, they may as well give you your treatment. And then you're not forgetting. And so that's what I did. So much of what is being described in Amelia's account of treatment difficulties and cure has been characterized in other literature as a problem of treatment adherence. Researchers often focused on individual adherence to prescribed treatment regimes as key to understanding medication failure in the treatment of hepatitis C. However, an analysis that would position Amelia purely as forgetting her treatment, not taking it seriously enough, or simply choosing to delay, or even primarily focusing on her housing issue alone, would offer a highly partial account of how and why treatment did work for her. Using this notion of the gathering, we can argue that Amelia's experience of cure was generated through a gathering of relations that made the biomedical effects of treatment possible. Cure and its actualization or impediment can be understood as dispersed and shared, articulated through a diverse range of actors, such as housing, stability, flexible distribution practices, friendship, stigma, secrecy, and so on. I'll now move on to the case of Kylie, whose encounter with the presumed inevitability of cure from the new treatments led to obstructed communication and delay in careful and sensitive treatment. So Kylie is a 46-year-old woman living with her young son in Melbourne, Victoria. She is unique in our project as she needed 2 courses of the new treatments to achieve clearance, an outcome that she described as an achievement that she wanted to shout from the rooftops. Kylie described being surprised and upset when she was not cured of Hep C after the first course of treatment. In her words, she says, I was just really upset. They did the last test on me and it came up saying that it was gone. And then I had a phone call saying that it had come back into the doctors because it was back. And I couldn't understand it. So it's perhaps unsurprising that Kylie struggled to understand this outcome, given that perhaps that before starting treatment, she had been encouraged to approach cure as a foregone conclusion. In her words, there was no information about whether it didn't work, to even think about the possibility. It was like I always heard, yeah, you have it, and you're cured. So Kylie's reflection that that information about unsuccessful treatment was not widely available highlights the ways that in efforts to increase uptake of the new medications, health promotion campaigns position current treatments as almost a revolutionary miracle cure with near 100% success rates. Now, while this presentation does not contest the efficacy of these treatments at all, it is notable that Kylie reports not being given any information about the possibility that the medications might not work or might fail to cure her hepatitis C. So this gathering of cure, and which is delivered as a sort of simple foregone conclusion, has important implications for people who are, in medical terms, deemed to fail treatment. Kylie noted that amidst this uncertainty about her outcomes, questions about her sexual and drug consumption practices, as well as treatment adherence, emerged as possible reasons for why the new medications did not work. She says, they asked if I was injecting drugs during the treatment, which I had stopped. They asked whether I'd shared a needle, if I had unprotected sex. But yeah, they asked if there was some reason why I still had hepatitis if I had done the program properly. And this issue continued when she began her next course of treatment. She said, going to the chemist and like having to get the prescription again and everyone asking the same old questions. Why are you having to do it again? What happened the first time? Why has everyone else passed it and you haven't? It was very annoying and I couldn't answer the questions because I didn't know why. So through both treatment courses, Kylie faces heightened scrutiny from health professionals. We can see how these oversimplified logics of treatment success gather cure as inevitable when with medication failure largely framed as a problem of adherence and individual behaviour. This cure gathering led to Kylie feeling that she had to reassure, somewhat ironically, to reassure the health professionals that I hadn't done anything wrong and that I'd done everything step by step to what I was supposed to have done. Those are her words. So despite Kylie explaining that she had carefully followed all instructions, her actions were called into question, and she found herself somewhat ironically having to reassure the health professionals managing her treatment rather than being assured herself after receiving deeply disappointing news. I now move on to explore the ways that social and political material traces of hepatitis C linger, gathering a fragile and fraught experience of cure that can result in individuals having to wait to be meaningfully free of hepatitis C regardless of their clearance. So Julia is a 43-year-old woman living in regional New South Wales with her partner and 2 children. She acquired hepatitis C through injecting when she was younger, but at the time of her interview in 2020, she had not injected for over 10 years. In 2017, she was cured of Hep C after a course of the new treatments, an outcome she described as exciting. Clearing Hep C was a significant event in her life, reinforcing the break between a previous part of her life that included regular heroin consumption, intimate partner violence, and an overall sense of not caring whether she lived or died. As she explains, I just loved the idea of actually saying goodbye to Hep C because it felt like that last link to the whole part of my life. I still have antibodies of Hep C and I'm aware of it. But to lose that notion, that the virus is running through my blood was lovely. Despite experiencing cure and not having injected drugs for a decade, Julia's Hep C status remains encoded in deeply personal documents with significant sentimental value, both for herself and for her family. She explained, for example, a dyslexia assessment her daughter had in grade 6 that resulted in a report foregrounding her, quote, drug dependence in pregnancy, and hepatitis C status, and other childhood development books that recorded similar information. For Julia, these documents mean that she and her family remain marked by Hep C. As she evocatively described, despite clearance, the virus and the feelings of stigma associated with it continue to reappear, in her words, random places that they do not belong. She says, I guess it is still tied up a bit in that self-identity stuff. Like there's still thoughts around, the sense of damage, the sense of contamination. Yeah, and that pretty strong themes and something I've lived with for a long time. I see it in my maternal and child health book or in my daughter's dyslexia report, in really random places where I feel like it, where I don't feel it belongs. So in this way, Julia is not meaningfully free from hepatitis C, despite having cured it 3 years prior to her interview. She feels a lingering sense of contamination, complicating the binaries such as diseased and cured, on which cure as a biomedical status is premised. So recent analysis of the post-cure future led by one of our colleagues, Kate Sear from La Trobe University, has pointed to how hepatitis C and related stigma are encoded into legislation such as identifiable notification laws, insurance policies, and blood donation exemptions. In this way, individuals can be medically cured of hepatitis C but remain marked by it. And as such, Julia and many others still have to wait to live meaningfully free from hepatitis C, even in a context in which highly efficacious treatments are available. Given the stigma, discrimination, and various forms of material disadvantage faced by people who inject drugs, a key population of concern for elimination goals, it is perhaps unsurprising that for many, hepatitis C treatment simply does wait in their day-to-day lives. As the literature on treatment uptake emphasises, many people are negotiating complex contexts in which their hepatitis C is but one of a range of pressing concerns, many of which can't wait and really impact on day-to-day life. This analysis offers an account of how these forces can be gathered in such a way as to generate cure. However, it also emphasises that even with the availability of direct-acting antiviral treatments, many will continue to wait for treatment unless the scope of elimination efforts are broad enough to address a range of issues beyond traditional public health concerns of treatment uptake. Conceptualizing cure as a gathering means that these forces and relations are intrinsically part of cure itself, urgent concerns that without enough attention will delay individual experiences of cure and compromise the elimination goal more broadly. On this World Hepatitis Day, we argue that these broader issues can't wait because without ambitious and urgent efforts to transform the social and material relationships that produce hepatitis C and shape the lives of those affected by it more generally, efforts to eliminate the virus will continue to be delayed. Finally, as emphasised by the theme this year, stigma and discrimination continue to impact the lives of people living with hepatitis C, including those who have cleared it, as the final case demonstrated. This suggests that while the promise and achievement of cure can be life-changing, many connected and long-standing issues will not be solved by cure alone, and further public resources are needed that help reshape hepatitis C-related meanings and experiences in ways that respectfully support uptake. So before finishing, I'd just like to flag that this research will produce a new public resource with this goal in mind, reproducing a previously successful model that produced a website on experience of addiction, dependence or habit, and another site on experiences of overdose and take-home naloxone. This research will draw on the interview material to make a website about experiences of Hep C, treatment and related issues. It will be made up of carefully contextualized, in-depth personal stories of hepatitis C and treatment, alongside detailed topic sections exploring related issues such as experiences of diagnosis, family and friends, stigma and life post-cure. Our future website will speak directly to potential treatment users and their families and friends, while also informing health workers and other relevant professionals about hepatitis C treatments and issues surrounding them. And as such, the goal is that it will tackle the stigma associated with hepatitis C and other related issues such as injecting drug consumption. Thank you.